Sleep paralysis Redditors, what was the most terrifying experience you ever had? I heard this strange voice laughing. I couldn't open my eyes or move to see where it was coming from. Then I felt pressure on my back and heard and felt someone breathing on my neck. 2 out of 5 would not recommend to a friend. Are you saying the experience was a 2/5, or are you saying 3 people would recommend it to a friend? This man's asking the right questions. I had a horrific nightmare where I was watching a man brutally murder someone. I woke up in peak fear, unable to move, eyes open, but I could still hear that man talking in my house. It scared me bad enough I made my husband go check the house for the boogeyman when I could finally move. This shadow-like figure in the shape of a human was basically standing over me and choking me. Regret not calling him daddy. Wait, your dad chokes you? Yes, doesn't that happen with everyone? I usually hear noises that gets louder and louder or feel a presence near me which gets closer. This makes me freak out as I try to desperately wake up and in turn causes me to have breathing issues. I can sometimes struggle so much to breathe that I fall back to sleep due to being exhausted. Wake up a couple minutes later, rinse and repeat. Door knocking. Hard, and in an endless loop of rapid burst followed by silence. Glued to my bed, unable to vocalize anything of course. If an episode of sleep paralysis could make you lose your mind. Woke up, couldn't move, noticed a yellow light at the foot of my bed, then several voices started talking to me and I could picture these like 2-foot alien dudes with yellow hair talking to me. Then passed right the fuck back out when they were done. Through multiple experiences, I've known to realize when an attack is happening so I can just jerk my body awake to get out of it. But, as I've kept experiencing them, I tried to keep on going, like to see what's gonna happen if I don't wake myself up. The worst experience I had was when I thought I woke myself up but it just looped, 3 times, with each episode getting worse. The first one was pretty mild. I dreamt that I woke up and went to the washroom, but as I looked in the mirror, the lights started dimming and I started feeling heavier as if some force was holding me where I was standing. Then a shadowy figure started floating inside the mirror trying to get close to my reflection. I managed to wake myself up and I was on my bed. Or so I thought. When I woke up from the first episode, I was on my bed but I still couldn't move. I was just stiff. I can move my eyes but nothing else. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until I heard some screaming. Not a scream for help but more of an antagonizing, "I'm going to kill you" type of scream. It started faint and it got louder and louder as if it was getting closer to me, and I tried to wake myself up again. Which led to the last episode. I was on my bed again but this time I could move. I seriously thought I've woken up so I head to the bathroom once again. But, as I got off my bed, these red, floating, things started appearing. They looked like jellyfish but made out of cloth. So I was just standing in the middle of the room with these things orbiting around me, but this time, I felt pain, as if something was scraping inside my head. Then I woke up for real. What tripped me out the most was that it felt like these episodes lasted for hours, like I would imagine it would be already morning by the time I woke up. The whole ordeal only lasted 10 minutes. I still get sleep paralysis occasionally but I haven't experienced anything worse than this ever since. I was on an overnight shoot in an area with 10,000 feet elevation in the middle of nowhere with zero service. It was freezing and I was very sick, so I went to sleep in the production van. I heard someone say, "Oh, she's still asleep," but I kept my eyes closed and it felt like someone held me down and kissed me, which was really fucking terrifying, especially when I realized I couldn't move and I tried to yell for help but nothing was coming out. It probably lasted less than a minute but it felt way longer. Eventually I was able to snap out of it and they sent me back to the hotel for the night. About 4 years ago I had been suffering from sleep paralysis almost every night for months, waking up constantly feeling like I was going to be attacked. When I would go into paralysis, it would just feel like there was evil thing in my room. Sometimes it was in the corner of my room, sometimes next to my bed, sometimes like it was hovering over the bed. It was a very masculine presence and it always gave off a vibe that it was furious at me. The thing I dreamed had a very distinct voice, one that I can't even imitate while thinking about it. I only know how it sounds when I go into paralysis. If that makes any sense. One night, I started to get that feeling and, in my head, I decided to fight back. So I started chanting in my head, "You're not real, you're not real, you're not real." The thing goes, "Oh yeah? Watch this." As soon as it said that, my daughter, who was 3 at the time, started shrieking her head off in her room. My so and I leapt out of bed and rushed to her room, which was thankfully right next to ours. She was up and out of bed, on the opposite side of the room, screaming her head off, shaking in fear, and crying. I have never seen her this scared before or since. She just kept saying that someone was throwing skeletons at her. It freaked me right the hell out. Later on, once everything was calm and I was back in bed, I told whatever the thing was that I didn't care if it tormented me every night, but leave my daughter alone. In the 4 years since, she hasn't had another nightmare that scared her like that. My sleep paralysis hasn't been as bad as it was back then, though I still get occasional visits. I'll never challenge it again though. I dreamt I was looking at a face of terrible demon. Baroque painting kind of horrible monstrosity. I woke up and saw the same face in the dark. I couldn't scream, tried to turn on the light but couldn't move. I could feel myself pushing against the barrier of the dream by trying to move, if it makes sense, and finally it snapped and I woke up. Shaken, I quickly turned on the light, the face disappeared though I still could feel the after image of it. Too afraid to go to sleep after that. It was 3 a.m., cause I knew it would be waiting in my dreams again. Heard my mother's muffled voice repeatedly calling my name from outside my bedroom door, then a tonal shift that indicated she had entered the room. Footsteps grew louder as she slowly approached my bed until the source of the voice revealed itself to be an unnaturally tall demonic presence with glowing blue eyes. It just sort of mocked me as I laid there powerless to scream for help for what felt like an eternity. That was my first paralysis experience and it occurred shortly after my first lucid dreaming episode when I was around 19. Also, the time I thought there was a clown masturbating outside the window directly behind my headboard. He told me that he was going to bust a nut my head, torture and murder my girlfriend, then tickle me until I couldn't help but smile about it. I've only had one case of sleep paralysis. When I woke up my arm was physically laid over my eyes so I couldn't see anything. I couldn't move it out of the way. I just heard 2 men pacing back and forth in front of my bed. Then I hear a chainsaw rev up as the second one started mumbling some shit that I couldn't understand even though it was in English. It was just that for I forgot how long. All of a sudden it stopped, gained control of my body, got up from my bed, took a look around and asked myself what the fuck was that? The only sleep paralysis I've experienced was apparently a pretty rare case. I could see a young blonde girl stand by my door, give or take 3 meters from my bed. I couldn't move but I somehow got out of bed. I could see myself get out of bed from an outside perspective whilst at the same time I felt myself get out of bed. I couldn't make any sound so I tried to signal to myself that walking towards the thing in the corner was probably not a good idea. And then I looked back at myself trying to convince myself that it's alright. Keep in mind that I am somehow experiencing this from both perspectives. So I walked toward her and touched her head only to notice that she's solid as a pillar. She won't budge. I circle around her, pressing her from different angles. Nothing happens. Until I've made a full 360 tour around her and pressing as hard as I can against her forehead. Then, quick as a flash, she grabs my arm. For a fraction of a second I see her eyes for the first time, and she looks furious. As soon as a flash begins and ends I wake up, or rather regain control of myself lying in bed. She's gone, I'm gone. Alone again and sweating profusely. For obvious reasons I didn't sleep much that night. I use sleep paralysis at times to lucid dream and sometimes encounter what I call the entity during SP. Basically a hooded tall figure that keeps its distance. Whether you regard them as malicious will be determined by your general state of mind and assumptions about the process. They become harmless if you believe them to be. Congratulations, you've reached the end. Tap on Reddit Piggy to subscribe to be blessed with 2 days of amazing luck, and also plenty of interesting videos from Village Reddit.